To the Goddard Association of Europe from Clyffe Pypard in Wiltshire, England, home to the Goddard family for more than 400 years. I'm Sharon Wallace, a member of St Peter's Parochial Church Council, and today I'd like to introduce you to the church and its part in the Goddard family history. I've lived in the old vicarage for 25 years, directly opposite the manor house here and next to the church. Records show that the first Goddards moved to the manor house as early as 1530, and the last, Mrs. Frances Wilson, whose maiden name was Goddard, she died at the manor house in 1940, aged 87. The pub in the village, now sadly no longer open, still bears the name of the Goddard Arms. The Goddard family, their ties and impact on the church remain in place to this day, and there's a warm welcome for the many who come to visit their family members' last resting place, and indeed those who come to research their family history. The Goddard family shaped our village, and we like to think the village helped to shape the family. But today we're here to talk about the Goddard family church of St Peter's, so let's go and take a look.
I'm Howard Pullen and a parishioner of this beautiful church. Here we have the Judas tree, which is in full bloom. It's so called because it's the type of tree that Judas Iscariot was hanged from. In the churchyard itself, there are many graves commemorating the lives of Goddard family members. On the wall here, you can just see the faint outline of a sundial. We forget, of course, that in centuries gone past, few could read or write, and so they needed these sundials to tell them when the next service was due to be held. Over the door here, we see a medieval lintel, reminding us of all those who have gone before us. Let's go inside.
Once inside, the first thing you notice about the church is the peace and serenity. Built around 1275, the building has borne witness to countless milestones in the lives of generations of families, weddings, christenings, and farewells, serving our community, our families, and our heritage. The church today is Grade 1 listed, which makes any renovation work particularly taxing. Much of its medieval past is still visible today. We see its stained glass windows, the paintings on the walls dating back for hundreds of years, and the plaques celebrating generations of Goddards. Above us, you can see two chalk kneeling figures dating back to the Tudor period, thought to be Elizabeth Goddard and her husband John. We can still see the medieval paintings which would have covered the church interior before the Victorian renovations covered the walls with a more simplistic style. Looking at the pillars and arches, you can see the marbling effect that would have been prevalent throughout the church. And above us, we have the wonderful oak vaulted roof.
In 1861, the Reverend Horatio Nelson Goddard, living in the manor house at the time, commissioned William Butterfield to rebuild the chancel here. It cost him £700 of his own money. The new fittings were all made from walnut, from a tree that had blown down in the Great Storm of 1856. This stained glass window is dedicated to Horatio Nelson Goddard in recognition of his renovation of the chancel and the church in the late 19th century. On the floor, you can see the gravestones for 3 of the Goddard children who died in infancy. Unfortunately then, not a rare occurrence. These are Edward and Johanna Goddard's children, Johanna and Elizabeth, who died aged 1 and 4 months, respectively, in around 1757, and their older sister, Anne, who died when she was 16. And here is a memorial to the last of the Goddards to live at the manor, William Wilson and his wife, Frances Agnes, daughter of Horatio, and who died here in 1940.
Moving now to the centre of the church, let us look at some of the memorials to past Goddards. Behind us, up high, is a plaque dedicated by Annika Susan and her husband, the Reverend Edward Goddard, to Susanna Webb, who died in 1858, who was nanny not only to their 11 children, but also had been nanny to Annika herself.
Here we have the pulpit, made from richly carved oak. It was given by one John Kingston, who was husband to Frances Goddard, to the church in 1629 and has been here ever since. This is the north door, where the Goddard family would have passed through from the manor to attend their Sunday services. In the wall here we have the stone effigy of one John de Cobham, said to be the person who built the church back in the 1200s. He is dressed in chainmail, which signifies that he took part in the Crusades before armour was worn. You can see that he has been somewhat hacked about. The story goes that a local carpenter chopped part of him away to make room for a new pew he was fitting. On the floor below him is the brass of John's cousin Sir Henry de Cobham, this time thought to date back to around 1362. His dress suggests that he had returned victorious from the battlefield. Much of the stained glass in the windows were presented to the church by various members of the Goddard family over the years, particularly Canon Francis Goddard and the Reverend Edward Goddard. Some date back to 1220.
At the other end of the church, we have the font. It was carved and given to the church by the Reverend Francis Goddard, son of the Reverend Edward Goddard. Finally, we come to the magnificent marble statue of Thomas Spackman, a local man who started life as a carpenter, but who went on to make a fortune for himself in London, we think, as a politician. However, it would seem that he never forgot his roots, and on his death, his friend and master mason, John Duval the Younger, built this marble effigy in his honour. It depicts the tools of his trade, and he is teaching a small boy, and, significantly, a small girl as well. This is notable because at the time it would have been unusual to educate girls. On Thomas's death in 1786, he left the huge sum of £1,000 to be distributed to several charities dedicated to the poor of the parish. The Spackman charity still operates today.
Here we have the gravestones for Francis Walcott Goddard and his wife Dorothy. Further across, we have the gravestone for Horatio Nelson Goddard and his wife Eliza. And finally, the last resting place for famed historian and archivist Nicholas Pevsner and his wife Lola. He will be known to so many of you as a German-British art historian and architectural historian, best known for his monumental 46-volume series of county-by-county guides, The Buildings of England, 1951 to 1974. We have many people who make the pilgrimage to see his family grave here at Clyffe Pypard.
So, we are appealing to you as friends and in memory of your ancestors who once walked these hallowed grounds to help preserve this vital piece of our shared history. Your contribution will help to ensure that the church continues to stand in memory of Goddards in the past and testament to our collective heritage, and also to continue providing a place of worship and community welcome for generations to come.
We would so much appreciate it if the Goddard Association would consider making a donation towards the roof fund, no matter what the amount. It is not only the money, which is of course important and would be most gratefully received, but it is also the reinforcement of the ties with present-day Goddards, connecting their continuing faith and recognition in our small parish church that remains so important to us and would be so appreciated. Our history as a community remains interwoven with the Goddard family today as well as in the past, and we continue to recognize the bonds that connect us through time and tradition. We will be deeply grateful for your consideration and support so that we can safeguard the legacy of our church for us all, ensuring it remains a pillar not only for our community's history and future, but also remains part of the Goddard family history now and always.